So if you remember, a first degree polynomial would be linear, a second degree would be quadratic, a third degree would be cubic, and a fourth degree would be quartic. So here are some examples of some polynomials that we've looked at. So please make sure that you keep that in mind when you get to your homework today. So what we're going to do today is we're going to start lesson 8-6. So on the front page, that's all 8-6, and after that is what we've learned in the past. So please do not work ahead, as then you will not know how to do 8-6. When you're factoring in 8-6, the difference from what we've learned before is that we have a coefficient up in the front, and that's called the leading coefficient. So that makes our factoring a little bit more difficult. So again, we know that we have to have two binomials that multiply to give us this trinomial. 2 is prime, so we know our only factors of 2 are 2 and 1. So that makes this a little bit basic at the beginning. So we know 2w times w is the only way that we can get 2w squared. Then we need to look at our factors of 15. So we have 15 and 1 and 5 and 3. And there's no other way that I can get 15. So some of us, we can do some diamonds like we had been doing. We need to multiply to 15 and add to 13, but then we have to take into account that 2 and the 1. So these diamonds aren't going to work for us anymore. So here's the strategy. We know we have to do 2 and a 1, so we're just going to do some trial and error underneath. So we know it has to be 2 and 1, 2 and 1. So let's try the 15 and the 1. So let's try the 15 in the first spot, the 1 in the second spot, or the 1 in the first spot and the 15 in the second spot. And now we're just going to multiply. So insides, when we FOIL, so insides are going to give us 15, and the outsides are going to give us 2. So then we ask ourselves, is there any way that 15 and 2 can give us 13 if we are plus plus? So 15 plus 2 is 17, so plus 15 and plus 1 would not work, so we would have to subtract the 2. So let's try the second one. 1 and 1, and 2 and 15. And that's also not going to work. So let's try the 5 and the 3. So we're going to leave the 2 and the 1, remember, because 2 is prime. So then we have 5 and 3, or switch it up, 3 and 5. So now when we do insides, we get 5, and outsides, we get 6. And 5 plus 6 is 11, and we're looking for 13. So let's try the second one. We get 3, and the outsides are 10. So this one is going to be the set that we're going to use, because we know it had to be positive and positive. So we need a positive 3 and a positive 10, so that means this is going to be plus and this is going to be plus. So we were using trial and error. So this is going to be 2w plus 3, and then 1w plus 5. So it's like we were using this as trial and error just to kind of practice, and we didn't want to have to write parentheses and x's and w's every time, so that's why we just had those numbers in there. So we're pretending that that black stuff that I just wrote, the parentheses and the w's, were there to begin with. Let's try another one. So we know our answer is going to be a binomial times a binomial. 3 is our leading coefficient, so 3 is prime, so we know our answer at the beginning has to be 3d times d. Because then when we do our first out of our foiling, 3d times d gives us 3d squared. So now we want to figure out last what would give us these two spots a 12. So my options are 12 and 1, 6 and 2, 4 and 3. So we know our first two terms, our first and here, have to be a 3 and a 1, so that's what I'm going to put down. So here we have a couple of options. So 12 and 1, 12 is pretty big, so why don't we try our 6 and our 2. So we're going to put a 6 here and a 2 here, and then do a 2 here and a 6 here. And again, we're just doing trial and error. We're pretending that this really says 3d and 6, 1d and 2, and we're just boiling it out to see if we get that answer up on top. So our insides give us 6, and our outsides give us 6. Is 6 plus 6 going to give us 20? If we double check our signs, I see plus, plus, so then we know we have to have positives. You can't have a negative in there, so that doesn't work. 2 times 1 is 2. 3 times 6 is 18. So 18 and plus 2 would give us 20. So that pair is going to work. So this is what we found to be our solution using trial and error. So 3D plus 2 and 1D plus 6. Because we knew when we did our insides and our outsides, when we did our insides we wanted to get a 2D, and our outsides gave us plus 18D. Now that gives us our 20D on the middle. Number 3 is a little bit harder because 4 is not prime, so we don't know what our first 2 numbers have to be. So products of 4 are 4 and 1, 2 and 2, and 32, the first ones I think of are 16 and 2, 8 and 4, and 32 and 1, obviously. So let's try with our 4 and our 1, and sometimes it's just lucky what you pick. So 4 and 1, and then we'll try the 16 and the 2 first. So 16, 2, or they could switch spots, and 2 and 16. So what we're working on is just looking at our insides and our outsides. So insides give me 16, outsides give me 8, insides give me 2, outsides give me 64. So I need to get 62. Notice now my signs are not plus plus anymore. They have to add to give me a positive 62, but then they have to add and subtract to give me a negative 32. So that tells me, they have to add to 62 and multiply to 32. So that tells me that one of my signs has to be negative. Okay? So to get 62, we'd have to do 64 minus 2. So we have to decide, do we put our subtraction sign on the middle or on the outside? So if we want a negative 2, the negative is going to go in the front and the plus will go in the back. So let's write down and see what we have. So this tells me 4D minus 2D plus 16. So now if I FOIL this out, first is going to give me 4D squared, and I guess I should have written an n in there. Outside is going to give me plus 64D. Insides give me minus 2D, and then my last gives me a negative 32, and that's what we needed to have. So whenever you see a starting quadratic that is plus minus, you know that you need to have one sign of each, because we needed to make positive and then we also needed to make a negative. So you needed to have one negative sign in there. So don't get frustrated with this lesson. This is a little more difficult than what we're used to. You just have to keep using trial and error to keep going. Number 4. I see 3. 3 is prime. We like that because it makes less work for us. When it is prime, we know it's just 3p and positive p, because 3 times 1 would be 3. Factors of 40 are 40 and 1, 10 and 4, 20 and 2, 8 and 5. So that looks like a big long list of factors. So let's try to think. We need to get a 7. We need to make a 7. So we're probably not going to want to use the 40 and the 1 or the 20 and the 2, because then when we start foiling, we have to deal with these bigger numbers. So I think it's more realistic to start with the numbers that are closer together. So we know we have to have the 3 and the 1. So I'm going to try the 5 and the 8 and then switch the order, 8 and 5. So we're looking at insides of 5, outsides of 24. So adding and subtracting, there's no way that 5 and 24 are going to make 7. Let's try our second pair, 8 and 15. Oh, we can subtract to get a negative 7. So then we need to ask ourselves which one would have to be negative to get a negative 7. Does the 8 have to be negative or the 15? If we want the 15 to be negative to give us a negative 7, does the negative sign go first or second? If we want the 15 to be negative, does the negative go first or second? Second, because then the positive 3 times negative 5 would give us negative 15. So then our answer is 3p plus 8 and then p minus 5. And if I FOIL this out, I will get the same thing up there. Let's try another one. Number 5, I see 6. 6 is not prime, so that's 6 and 1, 3 and 2, 24, 24 and 1, 12 and 2, 8 and 3. So we can't start out because 6 is not prime. So let's go with our strategy of not doing the biggest one. So let's go with the 3 and the 2. So keep those the same. And let's try the smallest over here, 8 and 3. So 8 first, 3 second, and then this is where we'll do the switcheroo. 3 first, 8 second. So then we do our insides, which give us 16, and our outsides give us 9. So multiply those two and then multiply those two. Multiply these two, we get 6. Multiply those two and we get 24. So we're trying to make 10. So did that one work? Nope. Do you see another pair of factors that I'm missing? 8 and 3. Yeah, let's try 6 and 4. So we're going to keep the 3 and the 2 the same. So 3, 2, 3, 2. And then the 6 and the 4, hold that spot, and then we'll switch them. So then my insides give me 12, and my outsides give me 12. My insides give me 8, and my outsides give me 18. Oh, and there it is. 8 and 18 can give us a negative 10. So do my insides have to be negative, or do my outsides have to be negative to give us a negative 10? I need my outsides to be negative. I need my 18 to be negative so that I get a negative 10. So I get 3r plus 4 and a 2r minus 6. Try number 6. Will you please pause the video so that the kids have some time to work? When you think they're ready, please play the video with a solution. So hopefully you didn't have to try every single pair. I did 5 and 1, and then 14 and 1, and 7 and 2, wrote out all my lists, and figured out what my insides and outsides multiply to be. I see minus plus, so I know my signs will have to be minus and minus because they have to add to be a negative and then multiply to be a positive. So the only way that can happen is if we are minus minus. So right away I know that this has to be subtract and this has to be subtract, and that's a big hint. So I need to get 17, so I see that a negative 7 and a negative 10 will make negative 17. So this one here is my solution. So using trial and error, I found 5z minus 7 times z minus 2. Try these 3 problems. Give the students about 7 minutes to work on these or until you think they are ready. Then play the second video to show the solution.